Hi, welcome to another episode of the Out of Office Club podcast. Thank you for listening again. If you haven't listened before, in this podcast, I share everything about my lifestyle as a digital nomad and someone who travels full time and doesn't have a home or a really traditional, lifestyle in that sense. All I have is my laptop, my let me clean that mess. My laptop, I've got a suitcase, and with that, I just travel around the world. And I've been living like this for over 2 years. And also before that, I spent a lot of my time solo traveling, and I love it. But of course, on this podcast, I share my honest experiences and thoughts because I feel like so much of what you see online just isn't reality and is definitely a bit too exaggerated or too positive or just not that realistic. And that's why I have this podcast. And again, I always try to share my honest experiences. If you've watched any of my previous videos or you listened to the last episodes, you'll know that I went back home to the Netherlands. So you might recognize this couch if you're watching on YouTube. I'm back at my sister's place back in the Netherlands where I'm from. And it's super nice to be back home. I left the Netherlands in, I want to say August, September. I spent a week in Barcelona in Spain. I then spent a month and a bit in Greece, went to Athens, went to a very remote place where I did a really, really nice co-living, and then 2 weeks in Kalamata. And then I went to Italy, where I spent a whole month in Matera. And then, sorry, sometimes my accent, I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce things, and then I switch between the English way and the Dutch way. Forgive me for that. And then I spent almost 6 weeks doing a work exchange in the south of Italy, close to Ostuni. And I thought about talking about that a bit more on this podcast, but I actually don't really feel like it. And if you've listened to more of my videos, you'll know that my podcasts generally are a bit of a mess, and I kind of just talk about whatever it is that's been happening, and it's a bit of a personal update together with a bunch of insights or thoughts that I've had that were relevant to the experience. So if you want to know more about that work exchange, I'm going to share a bit more on that on my social media, so check out especially my Instagram, but also I'll probably post it on TikTok, and it'll be on YouTube Shorts and everywhere, but Instagram is my main platform. But yeah, today I want to talk a bit about, again, I think relationships. And I know I've spoken about that before, but I wanted to talk about it again because I've once again been gone for 4 months, and coming home is always tricky. And I think I've talked about coming home after a trip and how tough that can feel. If you're curious about that, what it is like to come back home after a long trip, then definitely I recommend that episode. And I've spoken about what dating is like as a digital nomad, which is not great. But this time I wanted to talk a bit more about just relationships in general and how the downsides, I think, of this lifestyle. And I think over the past couple of days, I've just really noticed that. It's sometimes some moments I feel like it's not as bad. Sometimes I think it's not great, like now. And I'll explain why also, so you, I think, understand maybe better what kind of impact this lifestyle could have on your relationships. They're not all impacted like this, but I'm just noticing sometimes that they are. First, I guess the update. If you've listened to previous podcasts, you'll know that I've been dating a guy from Italy. Also, part of the reason that I came to Italy was to spend more time with him and to continue dating. And then I happened to get a work exchange quite close to where he lives, so he came and visited me a couple times. But we actually just decided to end it, pause it. I don't know. It feels, I guess we kind of said pause, but it feels quite definitive, I would say. It's just been really nice, but it's also been really tough to see each other for the past 3 weeks, so we haven't. it's been hard to text and call, especially because that's really not his strong suit, and that's why I'm feeling a lot of distance, and that's been really tough. And we know that we're not going to see each other for the next month and a half, because I'm here, he's back in Italy. We both have a couple of plans and other things planned already. And then I'm going to Asia, and then he said he could come to Asia, but it's all so uncertain, and it's all kind of difficult. So, and then he's been struggling with some personal things, so we just or I guess I mainly said that right now, to me, this is not really bringing me that much, and it's weighing on me, and I don't feel great about any of it. So I think it's better to just pause it here and then see, maybe we find each other again next year. If not, it's not meant to be, I suppose. But yeah, that was sad. I do feel sad about it because he was a really nice guy, but it just didn't work out. And that is, also I think why dating as a digital nomad is just difficult. It's very hard to find someone and then have the time to really connect and spend that much time together before either goes, different ways or has different plans. And a lot of the time that is my fault because I'm the one, most of the time, that is the most flexible. So generally it means that I'll go and join their plans until that starts kind of annoying me, and then I leave, and then I do my own thing again, and then there's more distance because I'm not in one place. And then if they can't come with me or they have other plans, then you don't really get to build a really strong foundation before being apart again. And that's tough. And I think that's the part about relationships as a digital nomad that are tough, and not just romantic relationships, but also friendships. I make a lot of friends when I'm traveling, and 99% I will, or 90%, let's say, I probably won't speak to you ever again. And they were a bit more short-term friends. Although to me, I never minded it so much because I've also been able to really connect with people in a very short time and really enjoyed that time together. Just like with the Italian guy, but also with just friends. And I've always really enjoyed that and looked back on it really positively and thought, oh, but we had such a great time and I met such an amazing person. Even if it didn't, end up being a long-term partner or friend. And there are some people that you meet along the way that will stay close, that you really, really bond with. And if you then both put in the effort, it could be something long-term. I have a couple friends that I met while traveling that I still speak with almost every day, if not every day. But something else that happened this week, which I found very difficult, and it's the first time I've noticed it as much because, of course, I've been traveling for years and I also studied abroad, I lived abroad, so I was never in the country that much. But I guess now, also maybe because we're all getting a bit older, we're all around 30, so I'm noticing, I think with friends from home especially, that the things that we do in our lives and the decisions that we make and the things that we face are a lot more serious and emotional, and yeah, they just, I think, mentally weigh on us more. More important things just happen, I think, in life around this age right now. And now I'm noticing that I'm missing out on things, which I find very sad. But I have a couple really good friends from high school that I've known for 15 years. And we saw each other again this weekend. Like the day after I arrived from Italy, I already saw them and I was very excited to see everyone again. So it was the 5 of us. And we had a really good time. We just sat there, we ate, we spoke. Everyone was catching everyone up on whatever it was that they were doing. And we sat for about 2-3 hours. And it wasn't until quite late in the evening that we started to talk a bit more about some serious things, like things that they were struggling with or things that happened. And that's when I noticed and realized that there were a lot of things that happened in the past year and a half to like a year that I didn't know about, that even last summer, even though I was in the country last summer, they didn't mention it then because I don't know, we didn't talk about it, or we didn't ask, or they didn't feel ready maybe, but I was the last one to kind of know about some very important parts of their lives that I did really want to be a part of, and of course wanted to support them in mainly. And I don't blame them for not telling me sooner, not one bit. I mean, that's their right, and I'm also the one who's far away, not them. But I did notice that I felt selfishly maybe a little bit left out, a little bit behind, and a little bit like I was being a bad friend, which was a very shit feeling. And again, I still understand that they didn't mention it before because they also said that, well, we don't see each other that often, so they want to keep it a bit more positive and, talk about good things and not mention some of the less fun things that can happen in life or that they've been struggling with. And we did have a really good chat about this. And I mean, absolutely no hard feelings toward them. But yeah, it did show that just because I'm not often here and I have a lifestyle that involves quite a bit of physical distance, that often does translate in relationships where you do have a bit more distance, and it is harder for people to feel close to you because you're not physically there. And again, not all of my friendships or relationships are like that. I also do have friends that I speak with every day and that I feel like I only also see maybe once or twice a year, but I do know everything about. But yeah, there are then friendships that I would say they're still strong, but they rely more on me physically being in the country, which is then why I just miss out on certain things. And yeah, I'm the last to know about some important life events. And that's not to say I don't feel included, because they do really try to include me. It's just tough because I'm not there. And I know that's hard on them too, to then include me in anything. So I understand. But it was still sad. And now with the thing that happened with the Italian, I find that difficult. So yeah, that's why I wanted to share. This is, I think, something that many digital nomads struggle with. And that does, again, come in waves. I don't always feel this way. And I also know and I feel that the relationships I have with my friends and my family are really strong, even though I'm not here. And I know the kind of friends that I have back home, or not even just back home, but in general, even the ones that don't live in the Netherlands. It's just sometimes tough to have that physical distance and to notice that sometimes you're just not as caught up and not as involved and that you miss out on things. And that is my own choice, and that is something that I have to live with, and that's not their fault. It's not their problem. That's just the consequence of this lifestyle, I would say. And I think that is just a good thing to know, that that's what could happen. And something that also happened because of that is that I honestly don't have that many friends. I know that I'm a social person, and I really, really enjoy meeting new people, making new connections, going, now not out partying, but just going out and meeting people and socializing. And I love that. And it's something that I don't want to lose, but there's not many people that stick. So I don't have a lot of actual really good close friends. I've got my 4 friends from high school. I've got a really good friend who moved to the south of the Netherlands, which is very annoying because she's far away. And then another good friend who lives here in The Hague now. And then I've got some good friends that don't live in the country, that are not Dutch. But that's it. I feel like my friends circle is quite small, especially the people that I really speak with every day that I feel like know me really, really well. That's even smaller group. To me, that is fine. I've never had a very big group of friends. It's also not my goal. I'd rather have really good friends than a lot of friends. But I think that's what ultimately happens with this lifestyle anyway. I don't know how you would be able to sustain a big group of friends if you're never in the country. So that is something to keep in mind if you do travel a lot. And that distance can be difficult to manage or to handle, especially mentally. And I think then it's just really important to talk about that with your friends, because that's what we did as well. When I saw my friends last this weekend, I did tell them, I was like, I know I'm not here, but and that when we do meet each other, it might be tough to talk about the not fun things in life, especially if we don't see each other often. But I really wanted them to know that they could always talk about those things. And if it's important to them, that means it's important to me and to the rest of the group. And they should feel that this is a place to talk about that, whether it is good or bad, it doesn't really matter. And so we had a really good chat about this, but it's still not easy. Same with dating. It's just, oh, it sucks. And I am sad that that relationship with the Italian is now a bit over. So I'm very sorry that this is not exactly a super happy, cheerful, maybe not even a super valuable podcast. But again, I also just want to show the real part of this lifestyle. And unfortunately, it's not always great. Every lifestyle is going to have its negative parts. And I think this is a really big one for the digital nomad lifestyle or the full-time traveling. Just the distance you can feel with people that you really care about and that you are close with. It's hard to keep that up sometimes. Luckily, I feel like with me and my family, everything's still great. And with my dad and my sister, I just don't feel like that distance ever really does much. Like as soon as I come back, everything's great again and it's all very natural and nice. It's just with friends, sometimes it's a bit difficult, but that's part of it. And I think as long as you have good friends, you'll get past that. I mean, that's just what happens in friendships, in relationships, even family. And as long as you talk about it and you're aware of it and you know, then you'll get past that. And I think that's something else also where it's good to have or to know that, you know, or to believe, I think that's the right word, to believe that the people closest to you have the right intentions. Like my friends did not keep anything from me because they don't want me to be close or because they don't like me, or they have good intentions always, I feel. And that's why I don't hold a grudge or I'm not angry. And the same goes for other friends and family. Also the Italian guy, like they have good intentions and I know that. So I can't get angry at them for anything or judge them for it. And I also just try and do my best and they know that. So that unfortunately, I think is the end of this very sad podcast episode. I promise next week I'll try and be a bit more cheerful, but I think the last week's just been so much. Also emotionally, that is sometimes tough with traveling because you do so much and then you don't have time to really catch up. Like I had to say goodbye to my spot in Italy and the routines I built and the people I met, and then I went straight to Bari, and then I flew here, and then I saw my friends and then my family, and then yesterday I went to another event and then I saw other family, and now actually today, right before recording this podcast, I spoke with the Italian, which of course did not end that well. It was a great conversation, but not a great outcome. So I feel like in 1 week so much has happened. Luckily, I think in the next couple days I have not as much planned. Actually, I have a lot of work to do and a couple things to prepare for the weekend and for Christmas still. Maybe it's just December. December is just a hectic month. Maybe that's it. But yeah, now I'm rambling. So thank you again so much for listening. I highly recommend to also listen to some of my other podcast episodes if you haven't yet, with some valuable tips about full-time travel and digital nomad life. Again, this was just a slightly more depressing one. But it's the reality, and I will not lie. on any of my platforms really about what this lifestyle is really like. So do with this info what you will. I still hope you enjoyed it, at least a little bit. And I will see you hopefully again next week, because that is just before Christmas, which I think I'll just record another episode for that. And then after that, just before New Year. So it actually works out pretty well timing wise. So I think I'll just go until the end of the year, but let's see how I feel. Or maybe I need a break. Let me know what your thoughts are about this topic, about my podcast. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments, because I was thinking to do a little Q&A for the end of the year, just to answer any other questions that you have about, can be anything, digital nomad life, travel, me, doesn't matter, ask away. So thank you so much. Don't forget to comment, subscribe, like, whatever it is that you can do on wherever it is that you're listening. And then I really hope to see you again next week. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.